In this lecture, we are going to talk about resistive sensors. Resistive sensors are sensors which take a physical quantity as an input and respond with a change in resistance. Okay, so so once you get a change in resistance, and the change in resistance is in some way related to the change in the physical quantity that we are trying to measure, you can then use this change in resistance to give you a change in voltage. We'll talk about that part. So the part which I have called signal conditioning here in the next lecture. Today, what we're going to do in this particular lecture is look at this sensor which responds with a change in resistance to a change in physical quantity. Okay, so this sensor is called a resistive sensor. Now, there are many different kinds of resistive sensors that are available in the market. You can have resistive sensors that measure displacement, um, like potentiometers and strain gauges would be examples of that. And we would look at both these sensors in the next few lectures. You can have resistive sensors that respond to temperature. Resistive temperature devices, thermistors would be examples. You can have sensors that measure light, uh, magnetic field, humidity, gas concentrations in air, conductivity, and many other things. So, resistive sensors are quite varied and quite prevalent, and you see them in all kinds of applications. Um, so, in this unit, what we are going to look at is we'll take a look at potentiometers, which are basically displacement sensors. Um, and the reason why we are looking at potentiometers specifically is because they are very simple to understand, and that gives us a starting point to discuss resistive sensors. Then we look at strain gauges, which are probably the most important and the most uh, widely used sensors. We'll look at types of sensors, and we'll look at the principle of strain gauges. And then we'll look at a special sensor called a thermistor, which measures temperature and responds with a change in resistance. We will also be looking at some characterization of the thermistors in the lab portion of this module. What are we aiming to learn in this lecture? We want to describe some types of resistive sensors, basically potentiometers, strain gauges, and thermistors. We want to learn how we can characterize resistive sensors. We've already talked about characterization of sensors in the previous lectures, and we want to see how that applies to resistive sensors. And of course, we want to learn how we can compare between two sensors and select a sensor for a particular application.